This is a film showing bush planes supporting a rafting trip down the Firth River in Canada's Arctic region. Our flight to the primitive airstrip at Margaret Lake on the Firth River started from the Inuvik Airport. The Basler aircraft beside the Twin Otter was originally built in World War II and operates in the Antarctic during the austral summer. Our Twin Otter, built in 1976, was equipped with Tundra tires, which are large, low-pressure tires to allow operations on rough terrain. The de Havilland Canada DHC-6 Twin Otter is a Canadian STOL, or short takeoff and landing utility aircraft, produced by de Havilland Canada between 1965 and 1988. More recently by Viking Air, which restarted production in 2008. It is a 1-hour flight from Inuvik to the start of the rafting trip at Margaret Lake on the Firth River. In total, 4 Twin Otter flights were required to bring in the 4 rafts, camping equipment, and people. Each flight cost about $10,000. Inuvik is on the Mackenzie River, which forms the longest river system in Canada. It was an amazing sight flying over the branching channels, ponds, and wetlands of the Mackenzie River Delta. The Delta, which is 210 kilometers or 130 miles long from north to south, is the second biggest Arctic delta in the world. The delta empties into the Arctic Ocean. Leaving the delta, we flew over many rivers flowing towards the Arctic Ocean, some of which had impressive horseshoe bends. After an hour of flight, we arrived at the rough landing strip at Margaret Lake on the Firth River in Ivavik National Park. The landing strip was generally flat, but there were many rocks on it as the strip is on a gravel bar formed by the river. Due to the rough ground, it was a bumpy ride taxiing along to the offloading point. Once unloaded, the plane rapidly returned to Inuvik as the day was young and other flights could be on the schedule. As the Arctic summer has essentially 24 hours of sunlight, nighttime doesn't restrict VFR flight operations. The campsite was on the Firth River where it flowed through off-ice. Off-ice is a German term meaning ice on top. It is a sheet of layered ice that forms from successive flows of river water behind ice dams or by groundwater discharged during freezing temperatures. Off-ice accumulates during the winter months and typically melts out during the summer. It often forms in the same place year after year. Although it can be beautiful to look at, off-ice can present a danger to boaters who can find themselves trapped between the walls of ice or pulled under the off-ice by the current of the river. Soon the second Twin Otter flight of the day arrived, bringing the final group of rafters and their baggage. In short order, the plane was unloaded and turned around for its return to Inuvik. With the departure of the second Twin Otter, we were on our own and ready to start rafting down the frigid Firth River to the Arctic Ocean. The swarm of mosquitoes at the campsite did their best to make us blood donors. Our 11-day rafting trip down the Firth River afforded us adventure and remarkable sights. The last challenge in our rafting trip down the Firth was getting through its delta to Nunaluk Spit due to the extensive off-ice and the low water level in the delta's lagoon. The off-ice was surprisingly extensive, so it was important to recce a route to avoid a route that would either trap the rafts between the walls of ice or result in the rafts being pulled under the off-ice by the current of the river. Once through the off-ice, we entered the wide lagoon with very low water levels that forced us to drag the rafts to Nunaluk Spit. We camped on the spit between the fresh water of the Firth Delta Lagoon and the ice-covered Arctic Ocean and enjoyed watching the bird life while waiting for our flight back to Inuvik. The enormous trumpeter swan is the largest extant species of waterfowl. The spit was formed of smooth shingle rock which cannot be compacted. Hence, tundra tires were essential to land on the rough, uncompacted airstrip and avoid getting stuck. With the arrival of the Twin Otter, our trip was truly over, as we'd soon be back in civilization. Due to the loose shingle, the pilot had to pour on the coal to get the plane moving around. Three Twin Otter flights were required to carry out the 4 rafts, camping equipment, and people. Again, it was a 1-hour flight from Nunaluk Spit to Inuvik, but this time we flew over the Arctic Ocean before traversing the Mackenzie River Delta. After turning east, we flew over the Firth Lagoon where we had dragged our rafts across. We could see the Nunaluk Spit with its airstrip on the shingle beach. Herschel Island, just north of the Spit, was the base of some 1,500 people in the 1890s who were involved in the whaling industry, which hunted the bowhead whale until that population was exhausted. It was fascinating to see the variations of the sea ice which still covered the Beaufort Sea. Once again, we flew over the watery maze of the Mackenzie River Delta, past Inuvik, to the landing at the Inuvik Airport and the end of our excellent adventure in the Canadian Arctic. The impressive bush plane support makes possible trips down the rivers in Canada's Arctic region. If you enjoyed this film, please subscribe and like. There are many more similar films available on my channel.